listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and today's episode is for anyone who has ever felt like life's challenges pull them out of center. Well, we are talking about how to anchor your breath and your mind to reclaim peace, balance, and confidence, even in the middle of chaos. And listeners, my guest today has walked the path from trauma to transformation, and now she helps others do the same. As a trauma release specialist, NLP life coach, Reiki master, and also founder of Sunshine Soul Vibes, she has dedicated her life to helping individuals break free from emotional wounds, generational trauma, and limiting beliefs that hold them back. So, in this conversation, we are definitely going to dive deep into NLP anchoring and how breath can actually become a powerful tool to reset your nervous system, and how these practices can be used in real life, not just in theory, to transform how we handle stress, fear, and uncertainty. So, if you have been searching for grounded, practical ways to shift your inner state and step into your power, this conversation will speak directly to you. So, Jamie, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sana. That was a wonderful intro. And I'm super excited that you had me on your podcast today. Super excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jimmy. So, before we dive deep further into the conversation, um, I know it can be, it's both liberating and then at the same time, a bit kind of difficult to revisit the hardest times. But then, our listeners, I mean, I including myself, we would love to know your journey from trauma to transformation and how exactly NLP contributed into that.
Yes, of course. That is an amazing question to begin with. So, during my own healing journey, I struggled for many, many years with self loathing. As a child, I internalized a lot of low self esteem and low self worth because I was in a childhood home with substance abuse. And as a child, we try to make sense of our surroundings and the situations that we find ourselves in. And as a child, we're not able to fully understand or comprehend
Mm,
why people do the things that they do. And so we take on that burden and we feel as though that the reason why this person is doing these things or participating in substance abuse is because of the child. So I internalized that a lot for over many decades. And I practiced a lot of toxic habits and traits, trying to numb and deny the pain and the hurt that I had as a child. And I carried a lot of that with me into adolescence.
mm,
And it wasn't until I found timeline therapy in
mhm,
neurolinguistic programming, which is when
mhm,
things began to shift for me.
mhm,
The technique specifically works with the subconscious mind. A lot of people are familiar with the conscious mind,
yeah.
and the conscious mind only governs about 10% of the human mind and experience.
Mm,
And the subconscious mind governs over 90%. And so it holds on to our beliefs, our habits, our thought patterns, and feelings. So when we utilize timeline therapy and neurolinguistic programming, we're able to target the root of the low self worth or the root of anxiety or the root of low self esteem and confidence. and release that within a matter of 20 minutes because it's so powerful because you're working with the powerhouse of the mind.
Yeah.
So when I had my first timeline therapy experience,
Mhm.
a lot of people who have struggled with past traumatic experiences, with depression or anxiety, they develop what's called a self-sabotage loop. And it's when we get into this mindset where we believe that we have tried everything that there is to try to deal with our internal problems. And when those things do not work out, our mind begins to tell us that we tried everything that we can and there's nothing that will work.
Mm.
And so there may be opportunities or people that have different techniques or strategies to help release those long held on beliefs and habits such as anxiety and depression. But because our mind is so used to the disappointment of traditional talk therapy not working or CBT not working, we feel as though that all hope is lost.
Yeah.
And because those therapies work with the conscious mind, that's why many people they spend 3 months, 6 months, and many years in therapy with not much progress. And so even for myself, before going through my own timeline therapy session with my mentor,
Mhm.
up until the very second, I believed that this would not work for me either. I convinced myself that the process was way too easy, that it was way too relaxing, and that it just wasn't gonna work. I had been through so many traumatic experiences, and I accepted that that was my reality. Living with this gaping hole of shame, regret, and sadness. That's what I accepted for myself. And at the same time, because I was a parent, a part of me also wanted to be better, to have more, to not pass on the generational trauma.
Yeah.
And so there was two different parts of me. One wanted more and better, but the other part of me was saying, there's no way this is going to work. But thankfully, the way that our minds work also, when there is a powerful emotion, a high vibration emotion, such as love, peace, or desire for good, that
Mm.
overrides the negative and low vibration frequencies, the anger, the shame, and the guilt. So the desire to be a better parent, to be a better daughter, better sister, that was stronger and more powerful enough to push me through the fear and discomfort that I felt and the uncertainty that I was sitting in, whether or not timeline therapy was going to work for me. But within 20 minutes of going through the timeline therapy session, it was just this weight of release and overwhelming joy that I experienced. It's almost inexplicable, honestly. And when I watch my clients go through this, you can see the emotion and the weight lifting off of their shoulders. It's beautiful. And I'm beyond grateful to be able to guide people through this process.
That is, I mean, first of all, of course, Jimmy, thank you. Thank you for sharing some of the most profound um, portions from your life chapter.
Yeah.
And I must say that, particularly the part where you mentioned that um, it was like there were two versions of you. The one version which who was expecting that this particularly NEP was not going to work, and then the version the nurturing version of you who was saying that to become the better version of myself, um,
Mhm.
showing up for myself and for my loved ones.
Yeah.
I I have to do this. And you are absolutely right. Those positive, those loving vibrations, they overpower the vibrations of grief, shame, and hopelessness. I think that's such a beautiful example of how NLP can work wonders. Um, and exactly, and it must be so um, fulfilling to see the people who are going through NLP, whom you are guiding to experience those changes as well. So that's really empowering.
Yes. Yes, it's definitely some powerful and transformational work that's being done. And I feel like the power of timeline therapy will eventually catch up to the mainstream because a lot of the different mental health services that are out there are still stuck into the traditional talk therapy and
Mhm.
cognitive behavioral therapy, working with the conscious mind. And so a lot of people they lose hope thinking that talk therapy isn't for me, that it doesn't work, and they accept the reality that that's the life that they have to live, living with the
Mm,
anger, living with the depression, and that's not the
mm.
case.
Yeah, that I agree with you that that really makes sense. And um, to understand more about NLP, Chidi, so what exactly happens, during NLP? I mean, how uh, because traditionally we look at talk therapy and CBT. It definitely takes longer and it involves like rigorous sessions of sharing more and more. Um,
Mhm,
kind of like just revisiting again and again and again those
mhm.
memories sharing. So, what exactly happens during an NLP?
Yes, so that is a great question. So with neurolinguistic programming, during a session, I guide clients to communicate with their subconscious mind in a language that the subconscious mind understands. So, consciously, when we communicate, we talk with the English language, but the subconscious mind it navigates a little bit differently. So, you can think of the subconscious mind similar to like a video camera. And this video camera has recorded everything that you have experienced from birth to now.
Mhm.
And not only does this video camera capture the images, it's a little bit more powerful than that. So it captures the feelings that you feel during different situations and experiences that you've had. It captures the thoughts and it makes up beliefs based off of the experiences that you've had. And so the mind, when we have experiences, it tends to interpret things in a way that may or may not be accurate, but based on our thoughts and feelings at the time, it'll complete a loop. And a lot of times, the subconscious mind takes things personally. So, for instance, with the example that I gave earlier, as children, when we have experiences that we can't quite understand, we automatically assume that it has something to do with the child, that
Mhm.
personally they did something wrong, in which it isn't the case, but it's the way the subconscious mind tries to make sense of things. It's the beautiful and natural power of the way our minds work. And so when going through different techniques with clients, depending on what their goal is, whether it's to release anxiety, to release a phobia, we identify the event that they would like to address, and we utilize something called a timeline. And as I mentioned, the video camera records from birth all the way to now. And
Mhm.
I will guide my clients through like a guided visualization. And they go through a few breathing exercises to relax. And then we just float back on the timeline to wherever the mind initially created the belief or limiting decision. And from there, I don't ask the client to communicate what they felt or what they experienced. We're not going to reassociate or relive the event at all. We're going to stay in a space that is relaxing, that is safe, and we process the negative emotions and the negative belief by changing what we call the submodalities. And the submodalities are the different attributes that makes up the video or the image that the mind records. So what I like to do with my clients when they're building a new habit or they're changing a habit that they no longer want to have, such as they want to cut out smoking or Coca-Cola, I have them
Mhm.
create an image because the subconscious mind works in images or movies. And I identify whether or not the image is like in color or black and white, or there sounds or emotions. And then I have them create a different image, identifying what they would like to have. And once I ask the similar questions again, is it black or white in color? We change the negative habit to the positive habit simply by changing those different attributes. And as simple as that may sound, literally just changing those colors, the sizes of the image, the feelings, that reprograms and repatterns the mind to release negative habits and to replace them with empowered ones, or to release the limiting and toxic belief to empowered beliefs. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. Please,
So instead of talking about this situation happened and reliving those details, we're simply changing the way the mind recalls that image or that belief or that situation so that you're no longer holding on internally or externally. Because the
Mhm.
situations and the beliefs and the thoughts that we have, we carry with us internally, and that motivates our actions and behaviors externally.
True. That is true. I mean, really, really goes deep down into your subconscious mind, and it's kind of changing the perception there, changing the viewpoint in there. Um, and does it take only one session of practice to for effective results, or does it take like multiple sessions, like depending on the person's experiences?
Mhm, that's a great question. So I have a structured process where we release the five negative emotions. So that's anger, shame, guilt, regret, and sadness. And each
Mhm.
session typically is about 20 minutes. But
Mhm.
sometimes, based off of the situation or the person, because not everyone learns the same, right? You have those that are kinesthetic, those that are visual, those are auditory or verbal. And in the same sense, when communicating and going through the process, the same way that they learn differently, they will imagine differently when going through the process. So it may not be images, it may be more feelings or it may be more sounds. So sometimes
Mhm.
it'll take just a few additional minutes to make sure all of those attributes are identified before changing the image or the video.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Wow. And um, I think it's actually reassuring to hear that it's definitely a practice. It may not be aiming or achieving perfection right from the start, but I think this is something that really goes really very very deep. And as you mentioned about generational trauma, Jamie, in your journey, how do these anchoring practices, how does NLP help with deeper wounds like trauma or generational patterns? Because they're kind of, um, you know, they're kind of determining our archetypes or our organic behavior or responses towards events or people or situations.
Yeah. So anchoring, to give it a simple example, if you were to imagine, let's say, your favorite food that you had during your childhood, perhaps it was something that your mom or your grandmom had made for you. If you were
Mhm.
walking down to a cafe and you smelled the aroma coming out of the cafe doors, what thoughts would come up for you?
Of course, the nostalgia, the
Mhm.
warmth of
Yes.
and those days, those old days, when my mom would cook it, and then I would constantly ask her that, okay, when it will be ready, when I'll get to eat that.
Right? Those cherished moments, yeah. And so that is the essence of anchoring. And so again, it goes back to how the subconscious processes things. It's our feelings, it's the thoughts, the smells, the beliefs. So when we smell something, when we see or hear something, it can anchor us or remind us and send us back to a time or an event. And so when I anchor my clients for an empowering belief or starting a new habit, we go back to the timeline and we move into their future and we anchor a feeling or a sensation. So just as that smell would send you back to those wonderful moments in your childhood, you can also utilize a physical anchor simply as touching your thumb and your forefinger to bring about those same feel good emotions.
Hmm. So
Mhm.
basically, through this, uh, your subconscious is also able to, kind of open itself in a safe space.
Yes. Mhm.
That's interesting. Interesting.
Yes, and this anchoring process is extremely helpful for those who have struggled with stage anxiety. So if you've ever watched keynote speakers or public speakers, they
Mhm.
bring their palms and fingertips together as some people call it the power hand,
Yeah.
but this can also be utilized as an anchor. So when we bring our fingertips together and we imagine and drop into a time where we were confident, powerful, and calm and focused, and we simply bring our fingertips together and then release for a second. And then you imagine bringing out whatever type of emotion that you want to anchor. You
Mhm.
bring your fingertips or whatever your physical anchor will be, bring them together and make the feelings and sensations as the most vibrant, the most lively, and most powerful as possible. And when you bring your fingertips together, that locks in all of those sensations, all of those feelings. And when you release it, and when you're ready to test it out and you bring them together, just notice what happens. And you'll begin to notice those same emotions that you anchored in come back to you.
Mm. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Uh, Um, and I just would like to bring a little bit nuance here in me because uh, it's still NLP or anchoring. They are yet to become kind of mainstream. Now, some skeptics, they would say that practices like these, they are just masking emotions instead of truly dealing with them. So, how would you respond to that criticism?
I would have a lot of follow-up questions, honestly, to ask. Uh, but my favorite type of client is skeptics because I myself is a skeptic at heart as well. So I would
I feel.
thank them for being honest for one and for expressing how they feel in their perspective. That's very powerful and should definitely be honored. Um, and then I would like to ask additional questions as to why their initial thought process is that, and what specifically do they think would be getting covered up? Because an additional directive of the subconscious mind is to repress emotions and experiences that we've had in our past to protect us until we are in a time and a space that we are ready and safe enough to process those emotions.
Hmm.
And so this process is not for everyone in the sense that if the person is truly not ready to process those emotions and the experiences that they've had, then the subconscious mind will not allow that to happen.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is logical. That is logical.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and do you ever worry, Jimmy, that using these techniques could create a kind of avoidance instead of healing?
Could you elaborate on that?
Like for specific or like exceptions, like techniques, maybe it's NLP or anchoring, they could just kind of somehow um, reprogram or probably give a signal to the subconscious to kind of avoid the hard moments, maybe the future ones, because obviously life is unpredictable. So
Mm.
we cannot always control or manage how we feel. So, these techniques could create a kind of avoidance instead of, going through them, embracing through them, and then healing also.
Okay. So these techniques are meant to empower and to strengthen your ability to adapt and persevere through challenges. So not to deny the fact that things are occurring, but
Mhm.
to acknowledge, to accept, and to navigate with behavioral flexibility. So neurolinguistic programming, the at the forefront, it's about creating opportunities
Mhm.
and having behavioral flexibility to navigate through challenges in a way that we normally wouldn't have navigated before. So,
Mhm.
specifically, when I had mentioned that sometimes in life we get to a point where we feel as though we have tried everything
Yeah.
and that we're moving in that state of hopelessness.
Mm.
And when clients go through the neurolinguistic programming, they realize that there's never a moment where we've tried everything because now the subconscious mind has been programmed to identify different avenues and pathways to navigating and overcoming things that used to be challenging, that used to put us in that victim mentality. And now we're in that creator mentality. We're in that coach role now. And we're able to persevere and navigate challenges with grace and ease. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a really, really good answer. To really
Thank you.
good answer. Okay. So of course, any small, simple anchoring technique. One for the fact that you also mentioned, and I do that, but right now I'm now more obvious and confident. Because I am in doing this. Whether it's listening to old. Listen to the songs that I used to love when I was a kid, or
Mm.
watch movies, or certain sounds, food. Um, Sometimes smell, these can really activate the nostalgic part of my subconscious.
Mhm.
It can really trigger such positive feelings, kind of,
Mhm.
um, that motivation within me when I'm feeling hopeless. So that's one thing. But any simple, small anchoring technique that you would recommend, uh, anyone listening to us, they can start right now. They can try it out, to start shifting their inner state.
Yes, of course. So, a very simple and powerful anchoring technique would simply be to first identify what type of emotion you would like to embody and to bring about, and
Hmm.
then to identify what your physical trigger is going to be. And when I got different clients through anchoring process, there are numerous different anchoring techniques. You can do a physical anchor, which is touching the thumb and the forefinger. It's
Okay.
very, discreet. No one would recognize and notice that you're doing it. And then there's also a visual anchor where I guide you to visualize two different images or colors, and we merge them together. And then the positive vibration and emotion will always be constant. But a very simple physical anchor would be utilizing your thumb and forefinger, and you simply get into a quiet space where there's no additional distractions for a couple of minutes. And you can close your eyes, leave them open, whichever is more comfortable for you while you're bringing up these different images. And simply think back to a time where you used to have whichever emotion. So think back to a time where you were confident and really see and embody the image of you being confident. So see what you see, hear what you hear, and really feel the feelings of being confident. And just allow yourself to really drop into that moment where you used to feel truly confident. And when those feelings and sensations are at its most intense, simply touch your thumb and forefinger and just take a breath and release. And if you'd like to add additional positive emotions to the same anchor, you can think back to a time where you truly felt at peace and then allow that image to come up and really see what you see, hear what you hear, and feel what you feel when you're truly at peace. And take a breath, allow those emotions to intensify. And when they are the most intense, simply touch your thumb and forefinger together and breathe and release. And then you can continue with this process and add three more emotions if you like. And at the end, you would release your thumb and forefinger, take a nice deep cleansing breath, and then touch your thumb and forefinger and just notice what comes up. You may find that you notice waves of relaxation. You notice that confident feeling that you felt when you brought up the first image. You may feel at peace. And if you feel all of the feelings that you anchored, that mean that it has anchored in correctly. And whenever you need to embody this emotional state, simply touch your thumb and forefinger. And the more you utilize it, the more permanent and more powerful that it becomes. Did you notice your anchored emotions?
I'm really, kind of rewinding and going back um, to those moments of peace.
Mhm.
Hmm. That is really, really. I must say it's very calming, Jamie. Very calm.
Mhm. Yeah.
And uh, the thumb and the forefinger. I mean, is there some um biological connection in that movement?
No, it's simply it's a mind body connection, mind and body connection that when you touch, you can either touch your thigh, your knees, whichever anchor or trigger that you would like to utilize to bring about this emotional state you can use. The thumb and forefinger is just something that is not as noticeable. Like in public, if you were to touch your thumb and forefinger, people wouldn't really notice it. So it's something that is discreet and easily to do to be able to do. Right.
I like that. I really like that.
Mhm. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And if you utilize essential oils as well, that's a very powerful tool to use during anchoring as well. So you can diffuse essential oils, or you can place them on your wrist and smell it as you go into those states and really drop into that image. So whenever you put on that essential oil or you smell the essential oil, that will embody and anchor that emotional state as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, great. So Jamie, this was sensational. I mean, this was grounding and hope-filled. So if our listeners they would like to connect with you further and explore in your work and the tools that you share, what would be the best way?
Yes, they can definitely follow me on the Insight Timer app. I have a few meditations and guided visualizations on there for numerous different topics and themes. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn and Instagram or at my website, sunshinesoulvibes.com.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes and for our listeners and Jamie. Um, I think I absolutely loved this because it's practical
Mhm.
and no fancy equipment or
Yep.
the best thing that you mentioned is we can do this when we're outside. Um, we wouldn't want to be discreet and no years of experience to start anchoring our breath, our energy in a way that truly shifts how we feel. So, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing experience doing this podcast with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. And thank you to all the listeners who are listening to this conversation. I hope this discussion it resonated with you. Make sure to connect with Jamie Green and explore Sunshine Soul vibes, explore the tools and techniques that she shares. And until next time, remember the breath is always with you. Anchor into it, reclaim your balance, and trust that peace is just one moment or one breath away. Thank you.
Thank you.